Despina Katsikakis, you are Executive Partner and Global Lead Total Workplace at Cushman and Wakefield. Thank you for joining us on BiTV.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be with you today.
Thank you. What are the main effects of the pandemic on the way we will work in the future to start?
Well, it's a very interesting question. We decided to actually take an evidence-based approach to the pandemic. So we adapted our proprietary tool, Experience per Square Foot, and we launched Experience per Square Foot at Home to help companies really understand the current experience that their employees were having, who's thriving, who's struggling, and how they can use the knowledge from this period to understand what the priorities will be as they return to plan their office strategy. So it's been a very interesting time. We have over 3 million data points from over 70,000 participants across around the world. And we had some very good news to start with. So the majority of people have maintained their ability to focus and effectively collaborate remotely. And in fact, for the first time ever, 90% of people say they now feel trusted by their managers to do their work remotely. That's a huge, huge shift. However, there are a lot of things that are not working as well. So human connection is really suffering. People are feeling the loss to connection to their colleagues, connection to culture. They're really struggling with mentoring and learning. And we're also seeing personal well-being taking a hit. So people don't really know when to switch off. We have blended work and life, so we're always on. And that combined with lack of movement means that we're really looking at some potential big risks to physical and mental well-being. And finally, probably the most concerning piece is that younger generations are struggling the most. So when we started the study, we thought that younger generations being more tech in that we'll be able to kind of adjust easier. But we found that baby boomers actually found it a lot easier because they had the cultural equity and the social connections within the business. So in addition to younger generations needing that mentoring and connection, most of them don't have the physical space at home to work effectively. And they're struggling with young families and, of course, the whole challenge of home learning. So if productivity was all that mattered, it would have been just good news. But actually, it comes at a cost to people and innovation. And that's what we need to focus on. However, I think it's really, when we look to the future and what we can take from this, is that the decision to work remotely or in the office is no longer binary. We've seen through our data that in spite of the challenges, 78% of people still want to have flexibility and choice of when to come to the office. So we will need to design and cater for a more hybrid way of working and more dynamic use of space. And that, I think, the important piece is that that will need to be intentional and managed.
You mentioned a new vision of the workspace and of office assets, of office buildings that will be required to meet those new paradigms. What effect could these new paradigm have on office assets going forward and for investors?
Great question. I think, there's been so much debate about the role of the office. Is the office dead going forward with flexibility? I believe that our data validates that the role of the office is stronger than ever before as we move forward, because that is the hub where you can convene people to strengthen both human connections and connection to company culture and to really build community and belonging. So I think the office will continue to be critical. The mix of space, however, will shift from the office being predominantly a place that supports individual work to the office becoming a place that predominantly focuses on collaboration, creativity, communal activities.
Mm.
I believe there will also be a much greater focus on quality, on the office becoming an inspiring destination that people want to go to, with curated events, learning and development, networking, connecting with colleagues to reinforce all of the aspects that are actually missing from remote work
Mm.
and enable people to maximize their performance, their creativity, and the connection to the organization.
Mm.
I think there's also another interesting piece, which is that as more people are likely to spend more time working from home, we could also see a rise in local community work locations to enable people to get out of their houses, get coffee, Wi-Fi, and connect with others. These local work hubs, local offices, could also satisfy that greater engagement with communities and tap into new talent pools. Also repurpose and reinvigorate the high street. So there's definitely an argument for vibrant, walkable clusters, which
Mm.
will be more in demand.
Okay, and maybe therefore the question is for investors, how can they navigate this transformation and make sure that their portfolios answer these new needs that you are talking about?
I think more so than ever, investors having sufficient understanding of occupier priorities will be critical in order to make evidence-based investment decisions on
Mm.
design, on services, the right amenities that impact experience and provide value for employees to come to the workplace, which will of course therefore provide value for tenants.
Mm.
One of the important impacts of the pandemic is that many of the trends we have seen in the past few years with regards to the office have been significantly accelerated by the pandemic
Mm.
and will now be basic expectations for occupiers moving forward.
Mm.
So take, for example, well-being. Well-being has been a trend for the last few years, but the focus on health and safety, alongside a very new awareness of the impact that the building has on our well-being, will dramatically change expectations of both design, specification, and certification. The other aspect that I think is significant for investors is implementation of smart technologies to manage real-time building data and to facilitate user interfaces,
Mm.
to ensure ongoing data and proactive analytics of both the workplace use and the experiences taken into consideration. So I expect that over time we will see that kind of real-time data develop predictive planning, design, and services analytics for investors to ensure that they can track energy use, well-being impact, productivity impact, experiences.
Mhm.
So those are big considerations. And lastly, I think location inevitably will continue to be critical as it's linked to sort of quality of experience. And as occupiers focus on locations that offer walkability, amenities, density, and access to transport, I think there's an opportunity to leverage the public realm and change planning to
Mhm.
facilitate more mixed use, more blending of uses to reinforce community, serendipity of connections and well-being.
Great. Well, thank you very much for this insight, and thank you all for joining us. See you soon on BiTV.